When Vertigo first hit theaters in 1958, audiences didn't know what to make of it. It was strange, hypnotic, and deeply unsettling. Too much for its time. Critics called it confusing, and even Alfred Hitchcock thought it might fail. But decades later, it rose from the shadows and became one of the most studied, mysterious, and haunting films ever made. So today, let's uncover 20 weird and fascinating facts about Vertigo, the film that almost ruined Hitchcock's career, but ended up defining his genius. Fact 1. It was a box office flop at first. Believe it or not, Vertigo was considered a failure when it released. Audiences in 1958 weren't ready for a slow, psychological thriller. They wanted action, romance, or something easy to follow. But Vertigo was like a dream, slow, poetic, and disturbing. The pacing felt strange, the ending was bleak, and many viewers simply didn't get it. Even critics gave mixed reviews. Hitchcock was so disappointed that he blamed the film's lack of success on James Stewart being too old for the part. But time had other plans. In later decades, critics began to re-evaluate it. By the 1980s, Vertigo was being hailed as a masterpiece of obsession and visual storytelling. And in 2012, it actually dethroned Citizen Kane as the greatest film of all time in the Sight and Sound poll, a wild comeback for something once labeled a flop. Fact 2. Hitchcock recreated San Francisco. Like a dream. Hitchcock didn't just film in San Francisco. He transformed it. He turned real locations into haunting, surreal dreamscapes. Every place Scotty visits, from the Golden Gate Bridge to Mission San Juan Bautista, feels both real and unreal, like a city trapped in memory. Hitchcock even had the color of fog adjusted using filters to give scenes a ghostly glow. The famous tree ring sequence, where Madeleine points to her birth and death on a cross-section of a redwood, was shot with incredible precision. He used subtle camera tricks and lighting to make it feel like time was standing still. Local San Franciscans were stunned when they saw their city look like a hallucination, familiar, yet eerily distant. Fact 3. The Vertigo effect changed cinema forever. You've probably seen that dizzying zoom effect in hundreds of movies, where the background stretches while the subject stays still. That's called the dolly zoom, or more famously, the Vertigo effect. Hitchcock invented it for this movie. He wanted the audience to feel Scotty's acrophobia, his fear of heights, not just see it. To pull it off, the camera crew physically moved the camera backward while zooming in at the same time, creating a warping, nauseating illusion. It was revolutionary. Today, directors from Steven Spielberg to Peter Jackson have used it, from Jaws to The Lord of the Rings. But it all started with Hitchcock experimenting in a stairwell with a camera, a dolly, and a crazy idea to make the audience's stomach drop. Fact 4. The color green is everywhere, and it's not random. If you've ever noticed how the color green keeps appearing in Vertigo, from Judy's dress to the eerie neon light that bathes her apartment, that's no accident. Hitchcock used green as a symbol of death, desire, and rebirth. It's the color of Madeleine's car, her clothes, and even the light that glows when Judy transforms back into Madeleine. When Scotty sees her emerge from the bathroom, bathed in green mist, it's one of the most haunting moments in cinema. Hitchcock wanted that scene to feel like a ghost returning from the dead, and green was his supernatural color. In his words, it represented the impossible dream made real. So next time you watch it, count how many times green sneaks into the frame. It's like a secret ghost haunting the movie. Fact 5. Kim Novak nearly quit the film. Kim Novak, who played Madeleine and Judy, was only 25 at the time, and the pressure of working with Alfred Hitchcock almost broke her. She described him as cold, controlling, and obsessed with perfection. Hitchcock dictated everything, her hairstyle, her makeup, even how she blinked. Novak once said she felt like she was losing herself while playing a woman who loses her identity. Life imitating art. To make things worse, she was also juggling a contract dispute with Columbia Pictures while filming. One night, she even threatened to walk off set. Hitchcock calmed her down, but the emotional strain never left her. Ironically, that vulnerability became part of her performance, making Judy's pain feel terrifyingly real. Fact 6. James Stewart was haunted by the role. James Stewart was already a beloved actor known for kind-hearted roles in classics like It's a Wonderful Life and Harvey. But Vertigo changed that image forever. Playing Scotty Ferguson, a man driven to obsession, guilt, and near madness, took a serious toll on him. Stewart was in his 50s and struggling to connect with the darkness of the part. He later admitted that filming Vertigo shook something loose inside him. The story of a man controlling and remaking a woman to fit his fantasy disturbed him deeply. After Vertigo, he never worked with Hitchcock again, a shocking end to one of cinema's most famous actor-director partnerships. Some film historians even believe Stewart avoided similar roles afterward because he feared revisiting that emotional spiral again. Fact 7. Hitchcock's obsession with control was real. Alfred Hitchcock was known for his precision, but on Vertigo, that precision bordered on obsession. He controlled every single detail, from the curls in Kim Novak's hair to the exact shade of grey in her suit. Even the way she walked was rehearsed over and over until it matched his vision of a mysterious, tragic woman. Crew members said the set felt tense, almost like a lab experiment. Hitchcock even refused to let Novak choose her own wardrobe, saying, No, Madeleine wouldn't wear that." When she suggested minor changes, he shut her down immediately. Some critics later said that Vertigo was Hitchcock projecting his own obsession with female perfection onto the screen. The result? A film that feels disturbingly personal, like the director's own fantasies and fears trapped inside every frame. Fact 8. The tower scene was filmed in multiple tricks. That dizzying bell tower scene at Mission San Juan Bautista, where Madeleine falls to her death, is one of the most famous moments in movie history. But here's the secret. The real Mission Tower didn't even exist anymore when they filmed. The original tower had been destroyed by an earthquake decades earlier. So Hitchcock had a partial replica built on a Hollywood soundstage, then combined it with matte paintings to create the illusion of great height. The shots of Stewart looking down in terror were done using the now legendary dolly zoom trick. For close-ups, they used clever editing and miniatures. Every element, lighting, angles, timing, was carefully layered to create a sequence that made audiences gasp. Even today, filmmakers study that scene for how it manipulates fear using pure cinematic language. Fact 9. The original ending was too dark to show in America. Most people don't know this, but Hitchcock was forced to change the original ending of Vertigo. In his first version, Scotty discovers that Gavin Elster, the man who set up the entire murder plot, has escaped to Europe. The film was supposed to end with Scotty staring out a window, realizing that Elster will never face justice. It was bleak, quiet, and morally empty, just like the rest of the movie. But censors didn't like it. They thought the audience would feel cheated without seeing justice served. So Hitchcock filmed a short, tacked-on scene where Midge listens to a radio report saying Elster has been caught in Europe. Most prints of the movie cut that ending, but it survives today in the archives. Proof that Hitchcock's original vision was far more tragic and hopeless. Fact 10. The film was lost for decades. After Hitchcock's death, Vertigo vanished. Literally. In the 1970s, it was one of 5 Hitchcock films pulled from circulation due to complex rights issues. For years, it couldn't be shown in theaters or on TV. Fans called them the Lost Hitchcocks. It wasn't until 1983, nearly 25 years after its release, that Vertigo was finally reissued and rediscovered by a new generation. But by then, the old film reels were in terrible shape. The colours had faded, the sound was damaged, and parts were almost unwatchable. In 1996, a massive restoration project began, led by film preservationists Robert Harris and James Katz. They spent months carefully matching the original colour palette, sound mix, and even Hitchcock's camera instructions. Thanks to them, Vertigo was reborn. The version we see today is brighter, sharper, and eerily timeless. And we're just getting started, because the next 10 facts reveal things that are way stranger. From real psychological studies inspired by the movie to the shocking way Hitchcock's own obsession mirrored Scotty's. So stay tuned and make sure you hit subscribe, because the next facts are going to mess with your mind. Fact 11. Kim Novak's performance was almost ruined by a contract dispute. Before filming even started, Kim Novak was in the middle of a heated battle with Columbia Pictures, the studio that owned her contract. They didn't want her to take the role in Vertigo because Hitchcock was borrowing her from another studio, and she wasn't being paid extra for it. Novak was furious, saying she'd been treated like a product, not a person. She eventually agreed to do the movie but came to set with emotional baggage. Ironically, that raw tension worked perfectly for her role as Judy, a woman trapped between identity and manipulation. She later admitted that some scenes, especially when Scotty forces her to change her hair and clothes, felt too close to reality. Novak said, "It wasn't just Judy being controlled. It was me." That uncomfortable truth gave her performance a haunting authenticity that audiences still feel today. Fact 12. The color symbolism runs deep. Every shade in Vertigo means something. Hitchcock was obsessed with how colors could speak without words. Green, for instance, represents death, rebirth, and obsession. You'll notice it glowing whenever Judy transforms back into Madeleine. That eerie green light in the hotel room, when Scotty finally gets his fantasy back, wasn't accidental. It was planned down to the last bulb. Red, on the other hand, represents guilt and danger. The famous restaurant scene where Scotty first sees Madeleine is bathed in red tones, almost warning us about what's to come. Hitchcock's production designer even kept a color notebook, tracking which hues should appear in each scene to control the audience's emotional state. This color storytelling was so ahead of its time that today, film schools still teach Vertigo as a masterclass in psychological color design. Fact 13. The Vertigo effect was invented specifically for this movie. That dizzy falling illusion, the famous Vertigo shot, was born entirely out of Hitchcock's creativity. He wanted viewers to feel Scotty's fear of heights, not just see it. So his cameraman, Ermin Roberts, came up with a bold idea. Move the camera backward while zooming in at the same time. The opposing motions create a warped sense of depth, like the world stretching and collapsing all at once. It was groundbreaking, but extremely difficult to pull off in 1958. The shot took several days, complex rig setups, and endless test runs. Hitchcock reportedly jumped with joy when he saw the results. That one shot has been copied in Jaws, Goodfellas, Lord of the Rings, and even Toy Story. But Vertigo did it first, and arguably, it did it best. Fact 14. Bernard Herrmann's score almost didn't make it into the film. The hypnotic swirling music of Vertigo is one of its most iconic features, but it almost didn't exist. Bernard Herrmann, the legendary composer who'd worked with Hitchcock on Psycho and North by Northwest, wrote the entire score under intense time pressure. Hitchcock was famously demanding, often rejecting drafts that didn't match his emotional vision. Herrmann's music was full of longing, guilt, and obsession, everything that defined Scotty's character. But when Hitchcock first heard it, he hesitated, worried it was too romantic. Thankfully, Herrmann refused to compromise and convinced him to keep it. That decision transformed Vertigo from a thriller into an emotional nightmare. The spiraling violins, the slow build of tension, it all mirrors Scotty's mental collapse. Today, Herrmann's score is considered one of the greatest ever composed for a film. Fact 15. The movie flopped when it first released. It's hard to believe now, but when Vertigo hit theaters in 1958, critics were unimpressed. Many said it was too slow, too morbid, or too confusing. Audiences didn't know what to make of it either. The story of obsession, control, and guilt was darker than what people expected from a Hitchcock thriller. The film made only a modest profit and quickly faded away. Even Hitchcock himself was disappointed and blamed James Stewart, saying he was too old to play the romantic lead. But years later, after its re-release in the 1980s, critics completely changed their tune. Vertigo was re-evaluated as a masterpiece, and in 2012, it was voted the greatest film of all time by Sight and Sound, dethroning Citizen Kane. Not bad for a movie that once no one understood. Fact 16. Hitchcock originally wanted Vera Miles, not Kim Novak. Before Kim Novak was ever cast, Alfred Hitchcock had already chosen another leading lady, Vera Miles. He had worked with her before and believed she could become his next great Hitchcock blonde. He even delayed production for months, waiting for her to finish another film. But during that time, Miles became pregnant, and Hitchcock was furious. He saw it as a betrayal, convinced she had ruined his masterpiece. He replaced her with Kim Novak, but the resentment never left him. Some film historians say Vertigo was Hitchcock's way of punishing the idea of a woman he couldn't control. He turned that frustration into Scotty's obsession, a man forcing a woman to become someone she's not. In a chilling way, Hitchcock's real emotions bled directly into the film's story, making Vertigo even more unsettling. Fact 17. The movie inspired real psychological studies. Believe it or not, Vertigo didn't just shape cinema. It influenced psychology too. The film's depiction of obsession, trauma, and guilt became a case study in several universities. Psychologists analysed Scotty's behaviour to explore erotomania, a condition where someone becomes irrationally fixated on an idealised person. Some even used the movie in therapy discussions about control and loss. The word vertigo itself became symbolic, not just of dizziness, but of emotional imbalance. In 1998, researchers compared audience reactions to Vertigo against modern thrillers and found it caused higher anxiety levels than most horror movies. That's how effective Hitchcock's psychological manipulation was. A film that could literally mess with your nervous system. Fact 18. Hitchcock's real obsession with his actresses. Became a Pattern Vertigo wasn't just a movie about obsession. It was an echo of Hitchcock's real life. He was notorious for his fixation on his actresses, particularly the blonde ones. He often micromanaged their look, behaviour, and even their personal lives. With Kim Novak, he went further than usual. He monitored her costumes daily, gave constant notes on her makeup, and even sent her unsolicited letters about how she should carry herself in public. Novak later revealed that working with him was both fascinating and suffocating. "It felt like he wanted to control my every breath," she said. It's chilling when you realize how much of Hitchcock's personal fixation was projected onto the film's narrative. A man trying to remake a woman until she becomes his fantasy. Fact 19. The dream sequence was years ahead of its time. That surreal dream sequence, the one where Scotty falls through color spirals and floating shapes, was revolutionary in 1958. Hitchcock hired artist John Ferren to design it, someone who specialized in abstract paintings. Ferren created the sequence to represent Scotty's descent into guilt and madness. What's fascinating is how experimental it was for its time. No CGI, no digital tricks, just pure in-camera effects, hand-painted animation, and layered exposures. The swirling colors and falling figures visually mimic Vertigo itself. Disorientation through movement and color. This sequence later inspired filmmakers like David Lynch and Martin Scorsese, who cited it as one of the earliest examples of psychological surrealism in mainstream cinema. It wasn't just storytelling, it was art therapy through motion. Fact 20. Alfred Hitchcock called Vertigo his most personal film. Though Hitchcock made over 50 films, Vertigo was the one that cut closest to his heart. He once told a close friend, "It's the only one that really shows what's inside me." Beneath the thriller plot lies a confession of obsession, fear, and guilt. The film mirrored Hitchcock's lifelong anxieties, his fear of losing control, his fascination with perfection, and his emotional detachment masked by wit. When critics first rejected Vertigo, it broke him. He refused to talk about it for years. But later, when the film was rediscovered, it became his artistic redemption. Today, people view Vertigo not just as a masterpiece, but as Hitchcock's soul on film, raw, flawed, and endlessly haunting. So there you have it, 20 weird, haunting, and deeply personal facts about Vertigo. A movie that wasn't just made, it was felt. From lost endings to real obsessions, it remains one of cinema's most psychologically complex creations. And if you think this story was wild, just wait for our next one. So don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us, which Hitchcock movie do you think hides the darkest secrets?